Hi guys. Okay, so it's been a couple of weeks since I put up a video, but we are still doing our life skills. We've been taking breaks though to have normal meetings, and open discussions and just what's going on in our life. So we did self-awareness, we did empathy, and this is the third one called critical thinking. These are our 10 life skills, and we will be doing 10 weeks, the 10 core life skills as laid down by the World Health Organization. So, critical thinking is the ability to analyze information and experiences in an objective manner. It is self-direction, self-disciplined, self-monitored, and self-corrective thinking. It can contribute to health by helping us to recognize and assess the factors that influence attitudes and behaviors, such as values, peer pressures, and the media. It can be described as the ability to engage in reflective and independent thinking. Critical thinkers. They question ideas and assumptions rather than accepting them at face value. They will always seek to determine whether the ideas, the arguments, and their findings represent the entire picture and are open to finding that they do not. Critical thinkers will identify, analyze, and solve problems systematically rather than by intuition or instinct. Some with critical thinking skills can understand links between ideas, determine the importance and the relevance of arguments and ideas, recognize, build, and appraise arguments, identify inconsistencies and errors in reasoning, approach problems in a consistent and thoughtful way, and they can reflect on the justifications of their own assumptions, beliefs, and values. Critical thinking is thinking about things in a certain way so as to arrive at the best possible solution in circumstances that the thinker is aware of, thinking things thoroughly to come up with the best possible solution. So just taking an idea, thinking about it in all ways, the best way, different way, the worst outcome, just thinking it all out in whatever possible ways that it can come to. Skills we need for critical thinking are things like observation, being able to analyze, interpretation, reflection, evaluation, inference, explanation, problem solving, and decision making. Specifically, we need to be able to think about a topic or issue in any objective and a critical way. Identify the different arguments there are in relation to a particular issue. When I do the critical thinking, to me is like, I like to say, like, I don't know if you like Eminem. It's kind of like the movie 8 Mile, where he thinks about all of the things at the end that the guy can say about him, and then he just says them. So if you can think about all of the things that somebody already has to say, or all of the things that can possibly happen, all of the way, not overthink, but think. So think just in general how it can play out, the main ways that it can play out, so that you're being able to identify with yourself. Identify the different arguments there are in relation to a particular issue. Evaluate a point of view to determine how strong or valid it is. Recognize any weaknesses or negative points that there are in evidence or argument. Notice what implications there might be behind a statement or an argument. Provide structured reasoning and support for any argument that we wish to make. So now when you just do decide something, to make sure that there's some kind of reason, a logical reason, or how you got to that decision. The critical thinking process. None of us use critical thinking all the time. Sometimes we think in almost any way but critical. For example, when our self-control is affected by anger, grief, joy, or when we are using to cope. But most of the time, we can learn to improve our critical thinking ability by developing certain routine activities and applying them to all problems that present themselves. Once you've got the theory of critical thinking, improving your thinking skills takes persistence and practice. So this was like when we had it MAPS, we did like a practice exercise to help start critical thinking. Think of something that someone has recently told you, and then ask yourself, who said it? So is it someone you know, someone in a position of power or authority? Does it matter who told you this? What did they say? Did they give facts or opinions? Did they provide all of the facts? And did they leave anything out? Where did they say it? Was it in public or in private? Did other people have a chance to respond and provide an alternative account? When did they say that? Was it before, during, or after an important event? Is the timing that they told you important? Why did they say that? Did they explain the reasoning behind their opinion? Were they trying to make someone look good or someone look bad? How did they say it? Were they happy or sad? Were they angry, maybe, or indifferent? Did they write it or say it? Could you understand what was said? Does it include text or the context of you or them? So this comes into play when it's like in a messenger or text. Context becomes so important because it depends on how the person said it, what their context was, and then when you're reading it, what mood you're in when you're reading it, the context can be taken differently. So it's always good to like think things through before you just read and respond, or maybe ask if you feel like there's something like the context is you're not getting it, maybe ask a question to clarify. One of the most important aspects of critical thinking is to decide what you are aiming to achieve. So what's the goal? And then make a decision based on the range of possibilities. So when you clarify the goal for yourself, you should use it as the starting point in all future situations requiring thought and possibly further decision making. However, we must not forget that things get in the way of simple decision making. We all carry with us a range of likes and dislikes, learned behaviors, and personal preferences developed throughout our lives. They are the hallmarks of being human. A major part of ensuring we think critically is to be aware of these personal characteristics, the preferences and the biases, and allow for them when considering possible next steps. Whether they are the pre-action stage or as part of the rethink caused by an unexpected or unforeseen circumstances to the continued progress. The more aware we are of ourselves, our strengths, and our weaknesses, the more likely our critical thinking will be productive. The benefit of foresight. Perhaps the most important element of critical thinking is foresight. Almost all decisions we make and implement don't prove disastrous if we find reasons to abandon them. However, our decisions making will be indefinitely better and more likely to lead to success if we reach decision. When we reach a decision, we pause and consider the impact on the people and activities around us. In the end, we all have these key things to take away. Critical thinking is aimed at achieving the best possible outcome in any situation. To achieve this, it must involve gathering and evaluating info from as many different sources as possible. Critical thinking requires Critical thinking requires a clear, often uncomfortable assessment of your personal strengths, weaknesses, and preferences, and their possible impact on decisions you make. Critical thinking requires the development and use of foresight as far as this is possible. Implementing the decisions made arising from critical thinking must take into account an assessment of possible outcomes and ways of avoiding potential negative outcomes, or at least lessening their impact. Critical thinking involves reviewing the results of the application of decisions made and making changes where needed or where possible. No info we have available to us externally or internally carries any guarantee of its life or appropriateness. Step-by-step instructions may provide some sort of trellis on which our basic understanding of critical thinking can blossom, but it does not and cannot provide any assurance of the certainty, utility, or longevity. So, you can think, you can try and plan. The reality is, like, you can't plan everything, and you can't foresee all the stuff that's coming, so you can't plan for it. But you can have a plan, you can think it out, and when something happens, you can reassess. And this is where sometimes we don't judge people on the decisions that they make or the reasons that they make them. So nobody knows what somebody's decision was or the circumstance that they were in when they needed to make that decision. And that is extremely important when deciding things. There's many things in my life that I've decided that when I look back now, I'm like, why did I do that? But at the time, when I think about what the choice was, it was the best solution for me at the time. And now looking back, it was not a good decision, but it was the best decision that I had to choose between. So that's why no judgment. No judgment, critical think, and reassess. So next week we are doing decision making, and that will be week 5. So subscribe, follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, or you can visit our website at www.niagaraunited.org. And we love to hear from you, so anytime. Until then, see you next time.